Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to call to order this meeting of the De Pere Sustainability Commission for March 11th of 2025. And Betty, if you would call the roll, please.
Alderperson Quigley.
Here.
Commissioner Black is excused. Commissioner Henry Gillis.
Here.
Commissioner Lawton is excused. Commissioner Slavin is excused. Commissioner Van Schindel.
Here.
Commissioner Weber.
Here.
Advisor Metzler.
Here.
All right, excellent. Next up is public comment for any matters not on the agenda. Comments made during the public comment period shall pertain only to matters under the jurisdiction of the Sustainability Commission. We do have guests here, so if you would go ahead and introduce yourself. We need an address like at the... Okay.
Hey, good evening. My name is Sam Dvorak. I'm a resident in town for the last 2 years, but I'm also from De Pere, went to De Pere High School. And appreciate you guys putting the public comment section right at the beginning. But been home for 2 years. We spent the last 6 years prior to that in Madison, my wife and I. And I feel like I have some sort of exposure and experience with any, I'm sorry, I'm coming off a cold. Exposure or experience with some sort of issue with sustainability. So I want to get back involved with things and help out any way possible. But I've worked in the utility industry for the last 8 years as well. So coming from that background, and yeah, but just wanted to come see how things go and help out anywhere you can. You know, man hours, if you need them, you can throw me at them, and just want to get involved. So thank you.
Yep, thank you for that, and thanks for the offer.
Just for our minutes, can we have your address too?
Oh, yeah.
Do you want my address? Yep, 1734 Jonathan Court.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you.
I thought I recognized you. We went to high school like a year apart, I think. Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm 2008.
Oh, 2 years. I was 2010.
Okay.
I thought you looked familiar.
Yeah.
There we go.
I don't know if you'd recommend I stay around. I was kind of just assuming I would.
Yeah.
It's up to you. The agendas are posted online, so you can always get the packet that way to see what we're talking about on a monthly basis.
Yep.
You have our contact, of course.
Yep.
But it's up to you. Yeah, we're open to have an audience.
I'll hang out tonight and go from there.
Thanks.
Okay. Also with public comment, anybody online that would like to address anything? I believe Sam is our only guest in the house. For the third and final time, any public comment for matters not on the agenda? All right, then we're moving ahead. Next item of business is approval of the minutes of the January 14th of 2025 Sustainability Commission. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion, any clarification from what you see in the printed minutes there? Okay, in that case, all those in favor of approving the minutes as published, say aye.
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 And those opposed? I think we got an aye, is that right, Commissioner Black? Yep. And
Yes.
we're supposed to be doing roll call vote on everything?
It'll
That,
be okay as long as we hear everybody.
okay, very good. Yeah, I'll try to give you a little bit of time so that I know there's a little bit of delay, but we'll listen for your vote each time. Next up, discussion of the 2025 Sustainability Commission budget. Chase?
Yeah, I want to give an annual update on our budget as it's approved by our Finance Committee. Moving into this year, the only real change in our budget was food waste composting. We went from $10,000 to $12,000, and then we asked to carry over another $17,000 in funds from 2024. So in the memo, you can see how we broke out each item for operating supplies to food waste composting, air monitors, farmers market, etc. So in general, the budget went up $2,000, and then we carried over additional funds that were unused from last year with the intent to spend them on like the pollinator gardens, and then if we're able to make progress with the air monitor program with the school districts. So yeah, it's up to any comment from the commission.
Do we have any forecasting on how this budget will be spent in 2025?
Outside of composting, no, not really. With the pollinator RFP that's in here, a good chunk of that could go to that RFP if we were to award. And on that note, it depends on how much of the city parks we'd like to do under that RFP, and we can discuss that on the next item.
Okay.
But outside of that, I don't really have too much of a forecast.
Okay.
Okay. Any other comments? Just for myself, I would like to see some kind of outreach for the food waste composting, because we have the budget money there, and I think if we don't talk about it, it's going to gradually deteriorate, so, it would behoove us to speak of it. So if we have any citizens in De Pere, if you're listening to our recording right now, there is a program where the city will pay for 50% of your cost of recycling food scraps, or composting rather, so if you're looking for more information for that, please check our webpage.
While we're talking on that,
Yep.
do you have anything in mind for outreach? Because I can confirm we're seeing a really big drop off.
They're dropping, okay.
So if you have any ideas, let me know. But I don't know if I have 30 residents right now that are actively communicating with me.
Oh, yeah.
Come the end of the month, I might have a lot come in with all three
Yeah.
of the monthly invoices. But based off what I'm seeing right now,
Are we supposed to send those to you monthly or quarterly?
it's up whatever's easiest
Okay,
for you. I'm
okay.
open to make your life easier.
Okay.
Most people that I've talked to so far have sent them monthly as they get them. They just
Yeah.
forward them right on to
Okay.
me. And then a couple of people have stored them and sent me all at once.
Okay.
But I'll work with whatever is convenient.
And I would fall into that category too, so I
Yeah.
have been getting them, but I'll.
Here's
send
your
them
reminder.
Quarterly, thank you.
Yeah,
I think-
I planned quarterly.
Along those lines, though, I think most of these, like, it'd be nice if we can get to a point where we can be ahead and know, here's what the budget is, here's what we're forecasting on spending, so then we know what we have extra, so that we can start to kind of aim our initiatives towards that, knowing what we have. Do we know why the composting numbers are dropping, or do we think, are we moving ahead of topic?
No, we can talk on this.
Okay.
It's budget related.
I'm wondering if we are getting reasonings why, or if we're just not getting the response back, and that's because of the change that was made.
I think a lot of it is to the change. I have heard from some residents, they just don't like corresponding with the company and their rhetoric in general. Outside of that, I think most of it is just the change and having to coordinate with the city directly, and maybe people are just forgetting, or it's time they don't want to invest in getting that reimbursement back.
Yep.
I don't think it's that. I'm sorry. I don't think that it's having to switch who's doing it. I think people tried it and either they liked it or they didn't, kind of thing.
Which is probably expected a little bit. Yeah, okay. I'm just curious, before we put efforts into promoting it, if we don't have the right
Good point.
solution, if you will.
Yep.
I'd say we're committed for this year. We always have
Yep.
the opportunity to cut ties next year if need
Yeah.
be.
Or if there's ways to make it, help show the value, make it seem easier, kind of jump over that hurdle of they tried it and they didn't like it. If there's ways to educate,
Do you do it?
yeah,
Do you
Yeah.
like it?
yeah,
I do. I like it too. I was just wondering.
yeah.
So easy. It's easier than doing it yourself.
That's what I
Yeah.
think too.
I hate the bucket top, but that's just me personally. The amount of food we dump in from my kids every day.
Oh, I know.
But yeah, that's where I'm wondering, like,
Do you follow
Maybe-
him on social media?
yes,
I think that's
I
why
see
we're
the,
losing
yeah,
people.
and I see the
Oh, I don't.
concern and hesitation around that. And that's where I want to make sure what we want to do as a commission is support composting as an initiative.
Yeah.
So let's make sure we can do that in the way that we feel is right. I don't want to put a bunch of resources into something that isn't the right fit. But
I think
in
that's-
general,
Very well said. That
Yep.
we're here to support composting. We're here to support our residents, not necessarily that business. And I have had feedback just based off communications and what they're seeing online. That's why people are dropping. And some even opted to not get reimbursement for the months they dropped because they still got invoiced, and then it's just not worth the pain anymore. They just cut ties and they're giving up that money for that month.
Okay. Commissioner Black, go ahead if you have a comment.
Yeah, Chase, walk me through this. I'm a resident and I would like to compost. What does that look like and who am I dealing with? For anyone who might not know.
You always have the option to compost at home. You can get your own compost bin and go that route. If you opt to go the private
Right.
side and use the compost reimbursement program, right now the only real viable option for the Green Bay area is Greener Bay Compost. You would subscribe through them, it's a monthly fee. You either pay $30 a month or $18 a month. And then the city would reimburse you back quarterly, half that subscription fee for that month. So on a monthly basis, you'd get $45 back, being $15 a month for 3 months, or you'd get $27 back, $9 for each month. We reimburse quarterly, so it'd be April would be our next reimbursement period. You'd send your invoices or receipts directly to me or Betty with the city. Our website has that information. I don't know if we have a hot link that I can, is it depeer.gov/sustainability? And it'd be right there. Or,
Okay.
yeah, the Sustainability Commission website for the city has the info on the program. But those are viably your only two options. Outside of food composting, there's things you can do like garbage disposals. Solid waste gets filtered out at the treatment plant by new water, and that's then burned for fuel. So it is a cost-saving measure on their end and rather sustainable. It could go to landfill.
I will bring up that it was very interesting in the report you gave for last year that like the tipping fees that we saved was very little. It was like $230 for the amount that we're putting in to reimburse people.
No, this composting program, environmentally, it's the sustainable thing to do.
Yeah.
There's no argument there, but financially, it is about 16 times more expensive to have people subscribe through Greener Bay Compost than it would be just to have that food go right to the landfill.
Yep.
Do we have all
Is
the?
there another way that we,
Go ahead, Janie. Sorry.
that's okay. Is there another way that we can support composting? Can the city offset, I don't know, any charges like for someone at home, the right equipment? Because back to your point of the company has gotten a lot of really super bad press, and it's in all the groups. So I don't know if that is something that we could even, keep promoting. So I'm wondering if it would be a greater win for us. As it was mentioned, we want to support composting. So if I'm just a resident, what's a way that I could do it that would make sense? And what are some charges, that I might have to, pay for up front?
I think Chase and Betty put all that information together last year originally, right? You had a really nice packet about it.
Yeah, the alternative would be we don't want to give away composting bins. The fear is that people will take them. It's a free item, and then they'll eventually dispose of it when they determine they can't feasibly continue this or they don't want to continue doing this. And then we're throwing away those bins, and that's going to landfill instead. The thought in the past was maybe we do a cost share where people have some skin in the game. They buy the equipment, and maybe we could subsidize some of those fees, or we maybe buy some and they pay us back and have a stock, kind of not like the adopt a drain program, but maybe we have bins that people can then pay the city and they cover half of our fees to compost then at home. Outside of that, I'm not an expert on composting. That's about all I could give you.
Yeah, and I like the question, Janie, because I think there could be other alternatives. In the back of my mind, I'm thinking through if throwing it in a bucket and have someone pick it up is too much for some people, and it's one of the cheaper options. The likelihood of them not continuing with it is probably high when you look at how much work it takes to actually do it yourself.
Yes,
Right.
I agree.
In the city,
And if you're not educated on it and totally bought into it.
in the city, we're not going to compost for people. The DNR requirements for us to have our own composting site equivalent to what the services that are being provided, it would be unrealistic. Especially we're very urban, the city of De Pere. We need a parcel that has, I think, 1,000 feet from a residential property, and that's for rodents and smell. It'd have to be entirely fenced off, and to take that real estate and put it towards composting, I don't think we quite have the city buy-in at this point. Maybe in the future we get to that level, but right now that'd be better slated for sale and then development. But
There's a lot of money allocated to composting.
Yep.
So I don't have the solution, but
right.
I don't know. I'm just trying to think through we should at least recognize that
Nope.
and think through if that's how we want to use it. Or I guess the follow-up question to that is, if we have money allocated for something specifically, can we use it for something else?
It's for food waste composting. It's not for a consultant this year. Food waste composting encompasses the reimbursement program. If we get to a point where we then change lanes and
Yep.
want to go a different route, I think there's
Even the air monitors, like if we're not getting traction there, there's 3,000 there.
that
Can we use
is
that
a little
for
bit
something
more
else?
slated. If it's in the air monitor realm or
It's in the
air
Clean Air
quality
Initiative.
realm,
Okay.
then that's easier. Where food comp, it's kind of has to be in the same lane. It's not
Okay.
money we can just willy nilly. Like we can't take operating supplies, for example, or postage and spend it on
Gotcha.
composting.
Okay.
Okay, all good comments. I appreciate that. And Carmen, to kind of go back to your point, I think if using the service is really easy to do, but it's expensive, and then the other alternative is that you can do it yourself, which is very time intensive but low cost. Maybe there is a something in between that we can explore.
Yeah.
And I think this year our mission should be to really watch the budget closely and see which way it's trending, and then make good decisions before we need a budget for the following year.
Yeah, I think maybe after April, it will be very telling how many participants we actually have.
That was my intent. And
Yeah.
to paint, or at least start painting that story.
Yeah.
Whether we need to consider an alternative at that point or not, but I'll have an update next month.
Okay. One more question. The $1,000 for seminars or conferences, has that been used in the past?
No, last year was our first year, and we
Okay.
didn't use a lot of our budget, but
Okay.
it's not.
Learning.
Gotcha. Last year I attended the Wisconsin Sustainable Business Council. That's typically in November. I do not know what the cost for that is, but that was great just from a learning perspective. I don't know how many city commissioners were there or those types of people or organizations. But just bringing that up, November timeframe, we can look into that maybe.
I made a note, and if I'll dig it up and I'll see if I can forward it to the commission just to see who would be
Okay.
interested.
Okay.
Okay, last call, anything about the budget information that you see in front of you? And if not, we will go on to the next agenda item, discussion of draft pollinator garden request for proposal.
Yeah, so no formal actions really needed at this point. I came up with the draft for the pollinator garden RFP, the request for proposals. And this is to have pollinator gardens planted at Brazier Park, Samantha Park, VFW Park, and Voyager Park. So I'm looking for from the commission right now or any comments or corrections they'd want to see to the RFP. So those of you who have some expertise, I'd like to discuss if we think we have the budget to complete the proposed work. And then I don't really know what firms we would need to send this RFP to for consideration. In the end, any comments or edits that I need to make, staff will then address and we'll bring it back at a later date for final approval, consideration and approval.
The scheduling section, I am not the expert, so I'm asking the question.
Yeah.
The timing that we have the RFP like going out and then the timing to have it completed by, is that the right timing for pollinators to like actually be planted?
To thrive.
Thank you. That's the wording I'm looking for.
Just to jump in, the award on that, I based it around my schedule. I am taking another period of time off for FMLA.
Okay.
So come mid-April through the beginning of June, I'll be out. So I put this as an award where I can then make the next common council.
I was more worried about the planting
Right.
time.
I mean, you can plant up until the ground freezes.
Okay.
So it's not, it's getting the plants that late in the year that becomes harder.
Okay. I just didn't know like if this gives free reign to like plant in the middle of July and the heat in July isn't good.
It is not. You usually plant spring or fall.
Okay.
I mean, you can plant in the middle of July, you just have to water more, right?
Okay.
So that's just more time that has to go into that.
Okay. And that's all covered with like if they wouldn't thrive because of those reasons, are we covered and we don't have to worry about it? Like it's not on us, or do we need to dictate that it should be planted in certain months?
Right, because November would be the very latest date. Ideally would be to get them in earlier.
I
Yeah.
would need a warranty. I don't really have one spelled out on this. I
Okay,
don't
that's
know
what I wasn't sure,
by
like if
plants,
that's
if they come
covered.
with warranties. And then on that note, do I need to have an item for watering, do you think? Like a gallon?
Cause is that covered in maintenance? But I just
would
want to
think
make sure
so.
we're covered that if it's planted in the wrong time and it doesn't thrive, it's not just a
I
waste.
would put something
Yeah,
in
'cause
for watering.
I
'Cause
think
know
watering.
I do think there's like some follow-up, right? I'm kind of looking to you because you probably know.
Yeah, I think if you look at the part that says like there's a maintenance part, and I think that really is supposed to be like over a couple years. So I think that, right, like in the maintenance, if the person is doing
So
it.
from when they're planted through the end of the year, and then I have an alternative bid for 3 more years. So maintenance is required for 1 year after substantial completion is how I have it. So everything's planted, clock starts, you maintain then. After that 1 year period, then we have a 3 years maintenance as an alternate.
And that's at the company's choice if they choose to do a
would-
3-year plan?
Probably budget dependent at that point if we can afford.
Okay.
So if the company doesn't want to do it, they'll pull out a high number and we wouldn't accept that alternative proposal.
I see.
I don't think we specifically call out though that like it says maintenance. Sorry, I'm trying to I read it earlier and I can't remember.
Yeah, I think we're asking them to tell us what their proposed maintenance plan will be.
Yeah.
And then as we're evaluating the proposals, we can compare one to the next.
Okay.
Right. But that also gets back to, we need to know which companies to submit, or to ask to make submissions
Okay.
from.
Right.
Am I saying that correctly?
So on the utility side of things, I typically have a 1-year warranty on operations and materials. Is that a realistic thing to ask of a planting? That
Yeah.
any
Yeah.
1-year replacement?
Yeah.
Then I'll probably steal language from a similar RFP for like construction and make it plant-like.
I mean, it takes these plants like 3 to 5 years to truly thrive. So, I mean, there is definitely maintenance for the first few years. So,
Does anybody see anything else in the language here? Again, this is a draft, so if you read it over, if you think of something in the next couple of days or weeks, send an email to Chase or to Betty and let them know what you're thinking.
I would need to know by first week of April would be the next agenda we're setting up.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm just curious on the process. So once this is sent out, which will determine where that's sent out to, but then does that all come back to the commission to review, or does that stay with you in the city?
It would come back to the commission. I would write a memo of recommendation of approval
Okay.
for you then to consider and approve.
Yep.
And then we'd go to common council for final approval.
Okay. So who do we send it out to?
Good question.
I have no clue. Yeah. Can you give a couple options?
yeah. Yep. I can give some options.
Good. And part of that process is we may send it to specific companies. It's also posted publicly, so if there's somebody that's
Okay.
interested in this kind of work, they might, their eyes light up and say, oh, this is a project I'd like to get involved in. So,
Yeah. Typically, we like to hit 3 people, keep it a little neater. We're not going to go maybe to a firm in Minneapolis if
Yeah.
we have good firms that are local. So we won't waste their time. We try to pick 3 high-level candidates and run from there.
The proposed locations, are those the right locations for pollinator gardens? Okay.
That's exactly what I presented to Board of Park Commissioners.
Okay.
So I think we're locked in at this point.
and they're all adjacent to the orchards, correct?
Absolutely.
That's what it looks like, yeah.
Kind of works with how Parks operates, where they can mow and still tend to these gardens and
Okay.
orchards.
Very good.
Would it be important to put any language in here that, like, we want to make sure to hit the host species of the species that we list, monarch, carner, rusty patch bumblebee, say, like, if they have a host plant, make sure we hit that in the seed mix? I mean, I'm sure somebody doing this would know to put that, but
If somebody would like to give me the recommended language to add on that, and I'm fully open to. I have no idea on planting, so I stole this from a Minneapolis RFP, and then Betty gave me another RFP for Sun Prairie. So I didn't recreate the wheel on this. I just stole and duplicated and elaborated.
Don't use the word stole. You referenced
Yeah, all
and
public.
He's too honest.
yeah. I don't know anything about it either, so I don't even know what a host is. So if
like just like monarch, milkweed. I don't even think like Rusty Patch Bumblebee doesn't have like a host plant. You know, they don't.
They really
a
like
preferred
freshman's
plant?
breeches.
They like see. I don't know that. That's a great one. So, but maybe it's just
shade
more
one.
important when we get the proposal that they have a seed mix in there that we look over. But then that delays it. What if we don't? If
Is
we-
part of their proposal, they are supposed to provide their seeds, I thought I put.
Okay, so is
Yeah.
that,
I
are we
think the
running
way-
up on time that we should specify that off the bat so that we don't have to come back to another meeting, you know, just to kind of keep it moving? Maybe it would be better to specify right away.
Yeah, that'd be a good spot to put it. No, they should have a planting plan and schedule for each garden, but I don't have really host plants or any callouts for host plants in that submittal section. So I'll,
But under the description, it says at least 3 blooming plants species each during spring, summer, and fall, and higher diversity encouraged, strongly encouraged.
Yeah, and
So
the way
we're asking them to give us, yeah.
Yeah, and the way you have it written under general information of like promoting and establishing plantings for these pollinators, I mean, if the company knows what they're doing, they're going to do that, right? Like, I don't think we're going to get somebody who's just like, ooh, I just, really want to do this.
Yeah.
and we're not going to target those people. We're hopefully targeting people that know, or we feel know what they're
Yeah.
doing.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Chase, is the plan to, I guess my only concern, now that Rachel's bringing up seeds, is are we going strictly based off of cost, or is there going to be some dependence on whether it's a seed or whether they're bringing in plants? Because obviously plants are going to cost more than seeds.
Yep.
So how will that be balanced?
RFPs are never based off cost statutorily. We do not have to award based off cost for an RFP, so it'll really be up to the commission's discretion on who they would award this to. Should this get big enough where we have to advertise and bid, then we have to take low bid. But this is only a proposal. We do what's best for us.
Okay, that helps. Very good. All good comments, yep. We're excited, we're moving ahead.
And
Yeah.
going back to watering, I'm going to include that as incidental with maintenance, so I don't have to do like 1,000 gallons. We'll just
Okay, yep.
include that in their year.
Okay, and again, any
Hopefully it
other
rains.
comments? If you think of something in the next days or weeks, keep the ideas coming in. If we're okay with it, I'm going to move ahead then to agenda item 4, discussion on prioritizing sustainable initiatives. I cannot speak today. Okay, Chase.
Yeah, and I'll lean on Carmen a bit for this too. In January, we discussed creating a prioritization matrix to evaluate current and future sustainable initiatives. The evaluation would eventually work toward creating a work plan for our commission. In discussions with Carmen and in January, we identified the top 3 bullet points in the memo as the critical path for this item, and that'd be reviewing our ordinance on the Sustainability Commission to determine what we should be working towards. Based off this review, create evaluation criteria to prioritize our initiatives, and then as these initiatives are evaluated, we then build a work plan, and really we'd incorporate our budget at that point toward this work plan to be developed and implemented. Currently, we're working on things like Adopt a Drain, the Clean Air Initiative, Clean Energy Work Plan, Composting Reimbursement Program, and the Pollinator Gardens. For discussion purposes, I created kind of outlines of 3 of the initiatives we're working on, the Pollinator Gardens, the Composting Reimbursement Program, and the Clean Air Initiative. I'd like to have a dialogue or history built for all of these initiatives as we're working toward them to both help new members get up to speed quicker with what's going on, and then the commission as a whole to evaluate where we stand and what we'd like to continue working towards. Also included with the memo, we have a copy of the Green Bay Sustainability Commission's work plan for 2025, a copy of our ordinance for review, and then the Green Tier Sustainability Strategy score sheet. Mr. Lawton talked about that in January, and that scoring was phased out in 2023 when Green Tier switched their criteria for legacy communities and what we have to submit on an annual basis.
Can you explain that a little bit further? Because I don't think I fully understand that
Green tier?
Yeah.
So back when we started, we were one of the legacy committees or communities. It was a very subjective score sheet that we'd have to submit on an annual basis. Recently, they switched over to a very quantitative, where we need to know how much power we're using as a city as a whole, maybe what our buildings are all using, gas usage, and it's very hard to coordinate with the limited amount of staff we have to do this application and get approved as a green tier community moving forward.
Do you have to do it every year?
You have to do it every year. On the DNR side of things, they're withholding maybe some grant monies, or we're not preferenced on some certain grants moving forward since we're not doing this. But right now, we just don't have the staff power, and I think Green Bay put 1,000 hours of staff time toward that, and it kind of rolled it in with part of their green energy work plan. So once it's built, it's easy to maintain because you know where that information's coming from, but we just don't have the time or staff to throw at gathering all this information to even submit anything. So with that, we've stopped submitting. We attend when we're able to, but it's not a priority for us right now.
Okay.
So there still is a green tier program, but the score sheet that's in our packet here, that's sort of outdated material.
That's phased out.
Okay.
Randall referenced it in January, so we wanted to include it just as a talking point. The score sheet out there now is very, very intense, and there's a lot of different quantitative, not subjective metrics. So, I don't know, Carmen, you want to take it from there?
Yeah, I think just a couple general comments. My thought with this was, first and foremost, I really like how Green Bay outlines their work plan and how they have a process for kind of identifying gaps in what they're doing as it relates to like the municipal code and what the Sustainability Commission was set up to do in the first place. And then also puts just a little bit of structure around evaluating initiatives and then kind of tracking them throughout. So I would love to see us get a little bit more organized in that way. I don't know that I'm not necessarily recommending we do exactly that. But I think the first step is maybe reviewing the municipal code and understanding, get everybody aligned to what this commission was created to do and make sure that we all understand what that is. And then maybe from there, kind of take baby steps to figure out ways to evaluate and then create a work plan off of that. And I think we have great bones with everything that we're doing. And personally, having the background, I think, was helpful to kind of see the progress and gives us a little bit of what we need to evaluate things we've tried, things we've pivoted, and then hopefully aligning budget to that in the future. So I'm by no means trying to say we have to do it this way, but I think a great place to start is reviewing the code and then just taking baby steps every meeting from there. So love thoughts.
I like it.
I think the last one we kind of left off with maybe like a matrix, and then going through the code, it's kind of set up when you go to powers and duties, it's that's kind of our matrix in a way to evaluate is, I guess then you have to talk about, well, how do you want to use a matrix to evaluate your initiatives? Does it need to hit all of those, or does it need to hit only a couple? Are some of them weighted more heavily than others? I don't know.
Yeah, and I think we talked about a matrix. We talked about like scoring. I reached out to Green Bay after just to like better figure out what they were doing, and they just generally have like some questions that they ask, and if it ticks most of the boxes and they all agree, they move forward with it.
Yeah, I think looking through these, it's almost like asking questions, especially if we're stalled out. Well, are we using all of our powers and duties to implement this initiative? I don't know. That's less of a scorecard and more of a roadmap.
I have a question. Does the city of Green Bay get like a lot of feedback about what the community wants? Do we know?
I don't
You know what I mean? Like, because we're kind of by ourselves.
So
Yeah.
in their it's not their work plan, their green energy plan, they did quite a bit of outreach.
with
but
like businesses and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and they got community feedback, and I I think a lot of our initiatives, though, have opportunities for community outreach on their own. And the farmers market showed certain ones have more feedback than
Yeah.
others. So we might be a great community to really dive into that realm.
Okay.
I don't know.
I loved
I
it.
have some thoughts. I don't have like a hand, so my hand. I'm going to play devil's advocate a little bit here because I just want to throw out. Do you think we're thinking too hard about this? I mean, sitting and reviewing code. You know, when we're here for a certain purpose, what is the big payoff going to be about that? And then, on the other hand, the engagement part that you guys were just talking about, we're really lacking the engagement of people who live in the city. And that's obvious with our initiatives. So to me, our real win would be focusing more on engagement. You know, that's why we're here, and we can only do so much. We can have a bigger impact with them. You know, a good example is our composting program. How can we engage them? Do we do a mass mailing? I don't know. I tend to like to do more actionable things like that. And I just wonder how much time it's going to take for us to build a matrix and review code. So I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not saying that I'm against it at all. I'm just trying to understand it because I think we need to start making some real progress.
I agree with you that I don't want anything to take a lot of time and take focus away from what we're trying to do. I actually think this will help propel us in making more of an impact by just putting a little bit more structure around it. Like when I read the code, and I'm not saying we should get deep in the code, but like the first one is saying make recommendations with regard to federal and state policies. I haven't seen any work being done on that since I've been on the commission. Now, do we want to or not? But that's what we were kind of created to do. That's just one of the buckets that we're supposed to have a little bit of impact in. So I think this is a way to help steer us in the right directions, not put a ton of, what's the right word, hurdles to jump over, but more just kind of keep us on course and then make sure that we have plans to be able to make that impact. But my intent with bringing it up is not to put a ton of hurdles to jump over to get there, but instead to have the ability to have a longer runway and make a bigger impact.
Yeah.
And I agree, get the engagement. But there could be potential that we spend too much time and dig too far in the weeds. And I don't know how we make sure that doesn't happen. But yeah, I agree that could be a concern or something that could happen.
Yeah, I think we just.
I'm thinking a little bit about past history here and about why people even have left this commission, you know, getting frustrated that things don't push ahead. So, you know, I just take kind of like all that into consideration when hearing this. Like I said, I'm not opposed to it, but on a federal level right now, I don't really know how much that we would be advising or anyone would be listening, possibly on a state.
Let me just clarify one thing, and then we've got a couple of people that want to speak here too. Chase, when we talk about regard to federal and state policies, is that something that you as staff are more in tune with, or you'd let us know if we're steering too far away from our mission?
I would let you know if you're steering too far away from your mission. With regard to federal and state policies, I'm not, my head's not to the ground on that.
You're not going into sustainability hard every day, yeah.
Especially my duties as assistant city engineer, I fit in sustainability as I can. I think prioritizing work will help me on my end to know what time I can commit and what to better put my time towards with regard to this commission, and it would make my life a little easier.
Well, then we're not doing it. Kidding. I'm kidding. It's a joke.
But no, I'm not aware of laws as they're passed on the state level and how they affect us as the
And
commission.
wouldn't that be on us to bring as the commissioners?
Well,
I'm
yeah,
up and up on some things,
Yeah.
just in my profession, but I don't think I've come across much that I'm like, I gotta tell the commission it's gonna affect us.
Right.
'Cause I don't know that.
And as you're made aware, just
Yeah.
let us know. And we
Yeah,
can make an item to talk on. But
It could help guide us though. So say we get public input, then we know where our guardrails are on what we
Yeah.
can impact and what we can't.
because, for example, with composting, for instance, I fear with the drop off on participation that I'm putting a lot of my time into reimbursing people when there's things that we could better be focusing our time as staff.
that makes sense. Anna, did you want to jump in
Yeah,
there?
I think like we need to like kind of like inform people so they have like more knowledge about these initiatives because like before I was ever on the board, like I never heard about like any of these initiatives, and I think that it'd be really beneficial to kind of like get the word out, like advertising them, and I think you'd get like a lot more people that are drawn in and like wanna help the community with these instead of just like not even knowing anything about them. So like even if it's just sending things out to people monthly, or I think people just like need to be reminded that they're out there.
Thank you. And again, we have a live audience here for the first time in several meetings, so.
Like
Sam-
in a year.
Yeah, Sam, you have, so it's a booming meeting. Yeah, you've tipped our statistics way over for, but I think that's important, is that engagement and getting the community involved, that means we have to even be more clearly focused on what our mission is.
Yes.
Because we have, I would agree with Commissioner Black, in the past, we've kind of gone a lot of different directions and trying to make efforts, and maybe it's the clarity of what it is we're going to do next. We're going to really dig into fewer issues, but to do them well.
Yeah.
Not saying that we have to do it that way. And I acknowledge what Janie's saying about, let's just do the work. Let's get started on it and make some differences. So,
Just a couple thoughts before we
Yep.
move on. Like a citywide mailer, for example, I don't know if that'd be the right way to go. We're talking probably $5,000 to hit everybody in the city.
Yeah.
A lot of staff time in that, just getting the envelope stuffed and out. We'd probably bid that out for another company to do it, just given the amount of time that would take.
Yeah.
And then when people get that letter, they see City of De Pere, they open it up. It's not a bill, it's not a tax, it's right in the garbage. So we're not hitting the audience the best. We discussed doing that banner over Reed Street, especially for like a clean air initiative. I think that's a big win if we do something like that. There's nothing that prevents us from doing something similar for composting. I don't know if there's radio hits we can do or.
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea. I was also thinking like a workshop, like
Right.
doing a compost bin building workshop, doing a rain barrel bin building workshop, doing like a winter sowing workshop, things that are related to our projects that we're working on that we can invite the community in for.
Yeah.
Because the farmers markets, have you worked one yet?
No, I haven't.
They are lightly attended, and we talk about whatever we're working on, but we don't it's hard to get those people. None of them are from De Pere. It's very weird. They're like, "Oh, I don't live in De Pere." I'm like, "Why are you here?" But yeah, so I like it. I think it's an easy way to be in front of people, but I think we could take it another step.
Well, then I wonder like if we put a little bit of structure on it, like, right, we create a work plan. We have an initiative, like the Clean Air Initiative. Part of that initiative should be engagement with the community.
Yeah.
Part of that initiative should be like, how are we tracking to make sure we're successful?
Yeah.
Part of that is we're planning for next year's budget so that we can get ahead of it to make sure that we're accomplishing what we want to, and then identifying gaps. Like a great option is we don't have a lot of input from like energy companies from what I've experienced so far. So do we have big gaps that we can get a little bit help on, or reach out, or find ways to engage the community a little bit more strategically? In my head, this is where I kind of see this going, that it's just a way to keep us on course and to kind of bring up the opportunities and risks that we can use to our advantage.
Yeah, I see the almost like just a bulleted worksheet in our meetings we go through, and are we engaging the community? Are we uniting and focusing the city or other municipal programs? Just have like a quick conversation. Is there any outreach we're missing?
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be too labor intensive. Just want to point out to Janie's point about, staff doesn't have time,
Yeah.
and you could this could be our full-time job.
Yeah.
It really could. if
Well,
we
that's
wanted
Green Bay has somebody. I think that's
Exactly.
why, right, they're so organized and do so much because they
I-
have someone focused on it.
I noticed something in in the work plan you submitted for Green Bay. They have a section of partners on every initiative. And I thought, okay, well, maybe they're really engaging with a lot of outside people to kind of execute some of these things. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe that's a way to bridge that
Yeah.
gap.
That's a good idea.
I love that, Rachel, because I think that we all know that engagement piece, we've been limited because we have a limited reach. And so when you are sharing what you just did and you say things like, you know, maybe partnering and bringing other people in, that's going to be deeper engagement.
Yeah.
I really love that.
And then I know I'm not getting like stars in my eyes because we've seen how sometimes it is hard to get we've tried to get the schools kind of on board, you know, to just still not get discouraged if you're not getting tons of engagement. But that's where we can put our efforts is really the outreach.
Yeah, and I think if we try something doesn't work, then we know, and then we try something
Yeah.
else so we can keep track of it a little bit better. I also like that it keeps us all on the same path. So as the community, as we get more engagement, we're all working off the same plan and everybody's bought in. And
It also helps people switching
Yeah.
off and on the commission.
Is there a place for, Betty, we used to do a Facebook update, like after each meeting, it was 3 or 4 sentences about here's what we talked about. If we would maintain a mailing list and say at the end of each sustainability meeting, you know, we'll type up those couple of sentences, but then try to make it a dialogue and say, this is something we've worked on in the past, this is something we're planning on tackling soon, to try to draw in some more of the community people, so they're hearing from us monthly.
Kind of like a monthly newsletter.
Yeah.
Well, the city does have a city newsletter that I was going to work with Amy on getting some of our initiatives put on it. I don't know exactly what the reach is on that. I know I get it, but I work here, so, but I don't know how many other residents are getting that. I don't think it's out of the question to try and come up with an internal mailing list, a MailChimp, something like that, of people that are interested in our initiatives. We did try that on, I think it's a question on the Adopt a Drain, maybe, on the bottom of the sign-up sheet. Are you into, do you want to be added to our list of upcoming initiatives? And
Oh, yeah, yep.
I think there's 3 people right now, and
Do we need someone to do a newsletter?
one of which is,
Me.
what was her name, Cindy Shampoo?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I saw her at the gardens. She wants to get involved, not on the commission, but as a volunteer. So
Sweet.
I think there's 3 people for that mailing list right now. So it'd be
It's a start.
the start.
Baby steps.
But I think I'd work to hit the city newsletter and maybe put a line in there. If you're interested in sustainable initiatives, please reach
Sign
out
up.
to us or whatever to get on that mailing list for specifically that. Because that's already a base of people that we can work off of.
Yeah, I like that idea.
We can also work on getting, I know Andy has been putting out the Adopt a Drain relatively frequently
Yeah.
on Facebook.
Yeah.
But we can work on getting other things out. We had previously been putting out 1 to 2 social media posts a month, and that kind of fell to the wayside. So that's another way we can start getting more interaction out as well.
I think too, if we could see it in a plan for that initiative that we're going to try these 5 ways to get community engagement, then we can also see what's working and what's not working so that you're not doing all this stuff that's not actually getting the results that we want from it. We can hopefully better see that instead of attacking it as it comes and just be more ahead of it. Because that's a lot of stuff that
Yep.
is done already or has been done in the past. I think a suggestion is maybe for the next meeting, I will gladly take it to come with a draft of evaluation criteria, just very simply a couple of things to gut check. Are we on path with what the municipal code says the commission was created to do. And we can review that as a draft, and then from there, maybe the next meeting, take that time to practice putting our current initiatives through that to see if it's checking all the boxes that we want it to, and kind of build off of that every meeting until we get to where we are. That way we can have time to get feedback quickly. And Janie, if things are taking too long, we have the opportunity to say, like, this is taking too much time or what, but it's very bite-sized chunks and hopefully not too much time.
I like it.
You can try it for a meeting or two and see how it goes.
Chase, we can make changes to code of ordinances as well, right? Like if the federal and state portion is a hang-up in our duties and powers, we can nix it. Like we can work to have it removed. And I believe our ordinance was built off of Green Bay's because theirs was first, and theirs does not include that language. It's very similar language, but it does not include anything about state and federal level.
Okay.
It just has the rest of the wording about policies, budgets, regulations relating to sustainable practices, including natural resource, energy, food waste, etc. So it doesn't include that language.
Yeah.
So I know last year we did go over the code to see if there were changes we wanted to make, and we did make some alterations, but it's not out of the question that if there are hang-ups that we need to finesse out of it or reword, that's an option too.
I would think as we go through this, right, if that's a criteria that we look at and the answer keeps being no, we're not solving this problem with this initiative, we're going to see that as like a gap, that wording's not right. And then we can say, do we want to do something about this or not? From there, we can say, okay, we might have an opportunity with an initiative like this. Here's people who are interested in, or let's change the code.
I'm looking at the clock here. I'm loving the discussion, and I think these are all important things we have to talk about. But we've got two more items to get to, and I've got another meeting coming after this. Chase, do you have enough? Can we bring this back as an agenda item again for the next meeting?
Yeah, absolutely. And then just two thoughts to close. Yes, we could absolutely change ordinances. If we have a recommendation to replace language, that'd be best. It's not just to strike things. Like if we're not doing things with regard to federal and state policies, maybe we're doing it with best practices or something like that.
Right.
Second thing, in our budget, we have $19,000 for sustainable initiatives. When I originally took over this position from Scott and I met with Larry, our city manager, the discussion was that item was for education and outreach, having someone come in to discuss how to put together a compost bin. Maybe we rent a room at Malva Center and have a free attendance for people to...
What type of member are you?
Yeah, like the rooms there are so expensive.
Or at local schools.
Yeah.
We can get the auditorium and have someone come in and speak on...
Or at Mayor Boyd's house.
There you
So,
go.
yeah, the location is less important.
Only if
than the
dinner
event.
is provided.
Or the Nelson Family Pavilion.
Or the Nelson Family Pavilion.
There you go.
Okay. So again, keep the conversation going, and I appreciate, Carmen, the work that you've put into this, but let's, we do have to move ahead a little bit. Janie, anything else you want to throw in before we move to the next agenda item? Okay, thanks, everybody. This is all awesome stuff. Moving ahead, number 5, consideration and possible action on the 2025 Farmers Market booth. Who gets this one?
I can kick her off. This is just to formally approve the farmers market booth dates. We listed them in the agenda, June 9th, July 17th, August 14th, and September 18th. And with this approval, if we can come up with a topic for each month, that would be awesome. We can do that one fell swoop, approve everything, and move on. Last year we did Pollinator Week in June. September was Stormwater Awareness because that coincided with Stormwater Awareness Week. The other two topics were clean air and compost. I don't know if we want to discuss compost again, or maybe we do want to push that to get more outreach. And then clean air is on the table. The trouble I'm running into is with the school districts, and I'm sure Janie can attest that we're just not getting the feedback from them that we'd want to see. But yeah, open to you all.
I wonder if we should do 2 Pollinator, because it was really, people were excited and wanted to talk about it.
I was almost going to suggest doing 2 adopted drains to see if we can get more participants earlier in summer too.
Yeah. Did you finish your video? I know we saw a clip of it, but what about the whole thing?
Yep, there's like a 4-minute one of Quigley and myself talking about it, and then the short little one.
Okay.
Because I like the adopted drain aligned with stormwater awareness, but I also wonder if it's like we're missing a big chunk of time that people would actually participate and sign up.
Yeah, having it so late in the season.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Can we somehow have all of the topics on the table? I mean, we're going to talk about pollinators, but even in June, you can sign up to do storm drain, or you can
Yeah.
sign up to do food composting if you
Yeah.
want to. So if it's not an all or none approach,
Yeah.
you know, that sounds like you got to do 4 projects every time, right?
Well, so the first year or two, we did individual topics, and then we went to offering everything each week, and then we went back to individual topics.
Yeah,
So,
I think we maybe like what I liked about the pollinator week and the stormwater awareness week is we had activities. So maybe we have that activity focused on one of these, and then we just have the signups also available, right? So like it's there, you don't have like it's just a sign up sheet, like it's nothing more than that, so people could just sign up, and then we have the activity like focused on the thing. Is that too much work?
no, and I don't know, would we want to have separate, like a separate sign up for, say, Adopt a Drain, or do we just have a sign up for, I want to be notified of the initiatives that are being worked on, and then if we get the newsletter going, we can
Yeah.
build that.
Yeah. I like a sign up sheet that's got like name, email, and then like the list of the initiatives, and you can
You
like
can just check it.
check off what you're interested in.
And I think if they're interested in any one of the initiatives, they're automatically on the email list.
Yeah, I like that.
As long as our city legal department is okay with that. But no, I mean, it's information, and you might not want to sign up for it now, but if you hear about it a couple of times, it might be something, a program that's more interesting in the future. Okay. So themes, are you writing down here? Have we come any closer?
I've had, someone bring up Pollinator Week twice, somebody bring up Stormwater Awareness Week twice. July and August still remain vacant unless somebody wants.
I think composting should be one of them. It is one of our initiatives, so I think we should do that.
Do you remember what month we did that last year?
July.
July. Do our commissioners have the ability
And
to
I think
speak
with
on-
the composting, we can focus more on home composting. You know what I mean? Like, how do you compost at home? We could switch it up a little bit from last year.
Focus just on the education part of it. You're saying like how to do it, the benefits of it.
Yeah, yeah.
And I, go
You
ahead.
could do both, but, you know.
Yeah.
I was just going to add it could be compost, but also a general food waste reduction.
Yeah.
How to reduce your food waste at home.
How to shop smarter.
Yeah.
Some good choices. Okay.
I don't get a vote, but my preference would be to put stormwater awareness a second time in July, and maybe move compost to August. That way we can hit on grass clippings being blown into the roadway and having them swept out during the summer months when people are mowing, and then September we can hit then on leaves and getting those cleared. And you can really break that into 2 separate topics, and that falls in line well with Stormwater Consortium.
And then that matches up better with our schedule for the.
It would.
For the booths, okay? You don't always have to ask us what we want to do. Sometimes you can just tell us what would be in our best interest.
I try to nudge.
That's a good nudge. Okay, so we're good on topics. Can you just give us that one more time so we're all thinking the same thing here?
Yep. So we're looking at leaving pollinators and Pollinator Week for June 19th. I will work with Amy to get a proclamation from the mayor at council, whichever council meeting falls before the actual week. July, we will do second stormwater awareness. August, we will do compost and food waste reduction, and September, we'll do stormwater awareness
Very good.
with a sign up at all of them.
Yay!
Yes. Good. And then this is, do we need to?
We would need a
vote to-
motion
Okay.
on the dates and the topics for approval.
Does anybody want to make that motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve both the dates that are listed in the agenda packet and the topics that you heard Betty go through right there. Any discussion before we vote on that particular motion? Everybody good? All right, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Sorry. I was late. I was thinking.
And those opposed? The ayes have it, and that motion carries. Thanks, everybody. Item number 6, consideration and possible action on Sustainability Commission subgroup rules.
So I apologize on this one. This was sent to me in November. Both Rachel and Janie worked on these subgroup rules, and they've been in my inbox. I've reviewed them. I think they're lovely, and they're for all of you to review and consider, and then potentially approve as guidelines moving forward for any subgroup meetings.
Okay. Any thoughts or comments the way they're printed there? I'm not sure about the word lovely. I just, it seems a little light touch for me. I think they're fantastic.
Didn't touch them.
Yeah.
I took them.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
And just attached them and ran with it.
Okay.
I like them. I
Yeah.
think this is great. And I think it's great structure around it. I think we talked about during that meeting as well, and like a list of all of the subgroups. I don't remember if we saw that.
I can bring one back.
Okay.
Just it'll be a quick hitter, maybe next month.
Maybe when we go through the initiatives, just add in,
The subgroup.
talk about the. sub-
Yeah.
Sure.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
I'll add that to the background then too for each item that we're working on, just active subgroup members or something like that.
So I'll make a motion that we approve the subgroup rules as they're stated here, and then once I get a second, we can kind of discuss if you want to make any changes or adjustments. So I have the motion, and the second comes from,
I'll second.
okay, from Carmen, thank you. So the way it's laid out there, do we need to add or tweak any of the language? Or is it indeed lovely and,
Simply lovely.
is it perfect in its first amount? Doesn't have to be written
I don't
in
wanna go
stone,
that far.
because if we adopt these rules and we find they're not working, we can always adjust it at a future meeting. Okay. Any discussion on this before we do the vote? I'm seeing some nods of the head around here. Okay, all those in favor of approving the motion and the subgroup rules as they're presented, say aye.
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 And all those opposed? And that motion carries. Thanks, everybody. Next up, future agenda items. Go ahead, Carmen.
Yeah, I was just going to mention, I connected with someone at Discover Green Bay, and they have sustainability as a focus for their 3-year strategic plan. So I don't know a ton about it yet, but he did say that it's to cover all of Brown County. So as a follow-up, I will send a link to that strategic plan, and I'm actually meeting with him the end of March for a work purpose. I'm just going to ask a couple questions. So I will bring back like any official agenda topics to discuss, but just wanted to put it out that there may be an opportunity to partner with Discover Green Bay on some of their strategic initiatives in the future.
Very cool. And Discover Green Bay is who? What's their focus or that group?
Bringing people into Green Bay.
Yes, they're like responsible for the tourism and like keeping businesses and stuff in
Okay.
Green Bay. They are a nonprofit, I believe, and I think they have a couple other nonprofits that like function underneath them. But I will.
Okay,
share
that helps
as
too.
well.
I've heard the term before, but I wasn't sure exactly. Thank you. Okay, we can look forward to that. Any other future agenda items?
Oh, I'm so sorry. It's hard being virtual. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, go ahead.
I would like to put the Clean Air Initiative on for the next time, please.
Anything in particular?
Yeah. Specifically, talking more about engagement.
Okay, thank you.
I'll reach out, Janie, because you weren't able to be at January. I think we had something built to discuss. I'll use that as a starting point. I'll see if there's anything you want to add, and then we'll work from there.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay. And then April is going to be a heavy meeting. The Lawton Company is coming in to talk about green tier status on the private side, so that'll be pretty cool. We have them slated to speak for a half hour. The way it'll go is because they're coming in and speaking as a guest, we'll probably have them higher up in the agenda, along with any other actionable items. Anything that's a discussion item will be less of a priority. And if we just can't get to them, they'll be carried on probably till July when I'm back from FMLA leave again.
Okay.
Can I give a stormwater update quick? Or is that new
Now or
items?
at the next meeting?
Well, I mean, if the next meeting's heavy, it will take like 2 seconds.
I'm okay with that. I don't know what the formal rules are.
I guess I want to update the commission on that quick. I gave a talk 2 weeks ago about the program. It was 20 minutes and I talked to about 150 people. So I don't know if that gets counted as like outreach for the program. And then I did submit a lightning talk to the Green Bay Conservation Partnership group that meets in spring. I haven't heard, but that's just like 5 minutes to talk about what we're doing. That's all. That was my only.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay. And again, with other agenda items, you can always send an email to Chase or Betty or even both. Thanks, everybody. I would make a motion to adjourn.
I second it.
All those in favor say aye.
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 All those
Aye.
opposed? Have to stay. Thank you. We are adjourned.